December 4th, and it's a very powerful full moon, and I'm going to be talking about the main lesson that we can get. Now, this full moon, as you can see, it's up here in Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus, and it's also bright in Taurus, two major sources of strength. Now, it's opposite all this Scorpio energy. As you could see, there's actually 3 planets in Scorpio, which is a turbulent section of the zodiac. So I'm going to be talking about those things. It's also in Rohini Nakshatra. So that's a feature of Vedic astrology. So again, make sure to watch to the end, because I'm going to be talking about the main lesson. And it's a very important one, and it's very much within our grasp and very needed at this time, because again, we tend to focus on the full moon as an object. Certainly in the sky, the moon is very bright and we see it, but we're really mostly living the sun cycle. And like I said, right now we're in this Scorpio phase right now, and there's a lot of turbulent energy with the sun in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, also combust. Venus is also in Scorpio, and Mercury's about to go into Scorpio as well. As you can see, he's there 28 degrees of Libra. He was just retrograde. So there's been a lot of Scorpio energy lately, and we're in the Scorpio cycle. So Scorpio is a sign of turbulence, and not just turbulence for the sake of it, but because we're churning up buried wounds and hidden resentments and fears and stresses and vulnerabilities, because we know that we're not going to live forever. We know that even though the world is a beautiful place, this is very much the nature of Taurus, and we have a family and stable, solid existence where there's nature and friends and money and food. Underneath it all, there's also this vulnerability, because we're going to lose it all, and people leave us and people lie to us, and there's suspicions, and we're vulnerable, and we got to watch out, So this is how astrology and life works. There's this rhythm of opposites, right? So there's a big focal point on Scorpio energy right now, but the opposite point is Taurus. So Taurus is opposite Scorpio. And again, when the moon is full, it's also a major source of strength. So this is something to really understand about the moon. Is the moon in this cycle, in the cycle of, in about a month, goes from its most difficult and stressed to its most highly exalted. Because just a month ago, actually a month and a half ago, when we had the new moon in Libra, it was also called Diwali. When sun and moon were in Libra, the moon was very close to its debilitation point, where it's very dark, and where it's very dark, both at the same time. So at that time, the moon has both of its sources of strength very damaged, because the moon is strong when it's close to its exaltation point, which is Taurus, where it is now, and when it's bright, which it is right now. So these two sources of strength are called Ucha Bala and Chesta Bala. Ucha means exaltation strength, and Chesta Bala means emotional strength, but it's actually, for the moon, its Chesta Bala is when it's bright. So on full moons, the moon is very strong in what's called Chesta Bala, because the brightness of the moon is a major source of strength. But again, there's also a thing called Ucha Bala, which means the closer that a planet is to its exaltation point, the more powerful it is. So this moon in Taurus this full moon in Taurus is about as powerful as it gets, because the two main sources of strength for the moon, brightness and its Ucha Bala, or its proximity to its exaltation point, are both there. So this is a very powerful time to embody these lunar principles, and of course it's in opposition to the Scorpio restlessness. We have the Taurus stability, strength. And the moon is exalted in Taurus because it's a sign of earth, fixed earth, stability, and stable, powerful connections, right? Just like the water sits on the earth, the moon is the emotional waters, and the more stable things are around us, like with our family and our money, then the more we're able to relax. It's hard for us to relax when there's upheaval. And again, that's why the moon is debilitated in Scorpio. And also the brightness means that we can really feel the connection to the heart. And that feeling the connection to the heart is what the moon is trying to do. The depth of the heart, not just the emotions. And when the moon is dark, then it's like all of the water is boiled out of the pot. A good example of the moon and its brightness has to do with a pot of water. And the closer the moon is to the sun, the more it's like steam, and it's kind of like all the water is out of the pot. So it boils easily, or it gets overtaken emotionally very easily. But when the moon is far away from the sun and very bright, then we can feel the depth of our heart a lot more than just all of the emotions, right? Because, we need to understand the difference between the heart, which is the depth of our feeling, and the emotions, which are just our feelings in the moment changing. And this is why, again, Scorpio is difficult for the moon, because it's about that kind of turbulence and that vulnerability. Now, this full moon is also in Rohini Nakshatra, and Rohini is the most beloved and cherished nakshatra. The nakshatras are the distant stars, and as the moon goes around the zodiac, it spends a day in each one of the lunar mansions, is what they're called, and they're also called the brides of the moon or the wives of the moon. And Rohini is the most pleasing, the most beautiful, and the favorite wife of the moon. And so this Rohini Nakshatra is where we see the beauty and love of life and others. So again, this makes the heart, this allows our heart to really relax, and where we can then sink into the depth of our heart, not just a lot of emotions, and especially a lot of emotional reactivity. But there is the theme of worldly trappings and the attachment to the things of the world. This is one of the things that happens when the moon is in Taurus, is we can get very attached to family and money and beauty. You say, well, what's wrong with that? Nothing, except we don't take any of it with us. And one of the problems of Taurus energy is this kind of stubbornness and sort of possessiveness. And again, we all know people, maybe we are one, who we sort of define ourselves by the things we have, the people in our life. We couldn't imagine, getting rid of certain things because we need a standard of comfort and luxury. So again, these are all things that can undermine that Taurus, strength. And, even though the moon is powerful here, it can also be the power that, makes us cling to situations and forms. And again, I'm going to talk about the, main lesson here in a second. But again, just to recap, we're living in the turbulent cycle of Scorpio, trying to transform our relationships and our attachments. Again, this is why Scorpio is opposite Taurus. So we're in the Scorpio cycle right now. This is why there's a lot of restlessness, vulnerability, and we can feel it. But this full moon is to help land in that sense of contentment and peace and stillness. And that is actually the main lesson of this full moon, is in the midst of the transformation and turbulence of the Scorpio cycle. The main lesson and the main thing that we can really feel with this full moon is that contentment. It's called santosha in yogic principle, in yoga principles, because again, one of the main things that happens when we do yoga, and I don't just mean the postures, but I mean breath, and when we achieve that union with our higher self, which is what yoga means, there's contentment. We become content, which leads to gratitude, and we're grateful that we've had all the blessings that we've had. Again, and that leads to forgiveness of things that didn't go the way we wanted. And then we can release all of the turbulent, toxic problems of Scorpio, because Scorpio, again, is where we can be hanging on to emotional resentments. Again, Scorpio is a fixed water sign where we get kind of stuck in our emotions. So rather than stuck in toxic emotions with Scorpio, we can also be stuck in positive devotion. And the real key to transforming the toxic quality of Scorpio is this contentment where we relax, which can lead us to gratitude and forgiveness of those who hurt us or did these things to us. And then we can release the fears of Scorpio and the stresses and the resentments and the frustrations and relax into that fullness of the heart. And then the harmony between Scorpio and Taurus is achieved. Because again, full moons are there to help us complete the current sun cycle. So we don't complete the Scorpio cycle. We don't complete the Scorpio lesson until we integrate those Taurus themes. The Scorpio doesn't become complete in transformation and transforming the toxic emotions into devotion and strength until we release. And we can't release the frustration and aggravation until there's first contentment for what we have, santosha, contentment. Again, this is a big Taurus lesson that Taurus needs to be also cultivating. Because the thing I mentioned here in Rohini, where there's worldly trappings and attachment, there's not contentment. There's contentment when we can enjoy the thing and then release it. Contentment leads to release, because when we're content, then we're grateful to have had the thing we had, or whatever it was, and to have the moment, right? Contentment is with the moment. And then we're grateful, then we can forgive all the things, forgivenesses of the past, so we can move forward in the future and release. So this is the big lesson of this full moon in Taurus. Again, remember astrologically, the moon is exalted, major source of strength called Uchabala, and it's bright, a major source of strength called Chestabala.